The Hammer podcasts will not be heard this month.
I've just been handed a bulletin.
Yes, dear listener, it is Once in a Blue Moon. You will have both this episode, which is Legends of the Superheroes, and a Hammer podcast episode in the same month. Now, I had promised back when I was on the Supermates podcast that we would do a crossover in a few weeks. Now, they released their episode a couple weeks ago, so I'm keeping my promise here. I did not want to push this back into June. But there is a special event happening in a few weeks with not only the Hammer podcast, but several other podcasts out there. Look for that, I would say, probably around the mid to end of this month. More on that later. I don't want to spoil the surprise for you. In the meantime, why don't you take a listen to this brand new trailer from Supermates, and then we'll get on to our program.
Are you a geek looking for love? Do you long to find discussion on that special comic, TV episode, movie, or toy that's just right for you? Then why not try Supermates, the husband and wife geekcast? Chris and Cindy Franklin can match you with that certain something to satisfy your genre-related longings, no matter the subject. Superheroes.
But Robin's like, that was really nice of you, Batman. It's like, I had the room loaded with kryptonite. I can turn it on at any moment.
And here's the thing, you're talking about, now think about this, it's an apartment building owned by Batman. Do you not think that Batman doesn't have their place bugged?
Sci-fi.
I don't know, you talk about being a sex symbol and stuff like that. I mean, I know a lot of girls thought, William Shatner was it, but I had the biggest crush on George Takei. I did. I thought,
Sorry about that. Horror.
And then when we see the Wolfman for the first time, he's in, I don't know, we don't know.
A long sleeve shirt and a dark pair of pants.
With a belt.
With a
belt, that's what I was. And his shirt's buttoned up all the way, too.
Yeah.
And his arms.
So after he changes into this ferocious beast who can't talk and doesn't seem to be able to think beyond just attacking things,
he has lots of dexterity.
He went through his closet and... I
like this outfit better.
Action figures.
I actually had all the figures and all the accessories up to a certain point. I really, literally did collect them all,
Including She-Ra.
I was going to get to that, but...
Chris and Cindy have found their own happiness through discussions like this.
I could be friends with him. I could be down with this version of the Ultra Humanoid.
You could be friends with the dude who put his brain inside a mutated albino ape.
I married you!
Oh!
If you're tired of searching for geek love, then sign up with Supermates for free at supermatescomic.blogspot.com or on iTunes.
Legends of the Superheroes. For centuries, the world has been protected by a group of extraordinary men and women who have dedicated themselves to fighting crime.
Greetings and welcome to Legends of the Superheroes, a production of thehammerstrikes.com, where we look at the live-action versions of your favorite comic book characters. I'm Gene Hendricks, and today my guest is the co-host of the Supermates podcast and the co-host of the Power Records podcast, both wonderful shows. Please welcome, all the way from Earth 2, Mr. Chris Franklin. How are you, sir?
I'm good, man. That transmatter device is really getting kind of wonky, though. They got to fix that thing. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you, Gene?
I'm doing pretty good. It's starting to warm up here, so it's nice to be able to actually open the windows for a change. Get some fresh air in the house.
That's right. Get out in the sun and the green and away from the cold, and yeah, good stuff.
Now, those of you that listen to Supermates, and really that should be all of you, know that we are covering the 2 Captain America movies starring Reb Brown. Now, this was my first time watching these. How about you, Chris? Have you seen these before?
Oh, yeah. I saw these when they aired.
Oh, wow.
Yes, I was there on the couch in 1979 for both of these, I believe. Yeah, I remember, because I remember his weird costume, and I remember his still kind of weird, but more traditional costume.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, definitely. I saw those then, and then at some point in the 80s, I actually caught it on, one of the local channels was airing it on the Saturday matinee. And I think I recorded the second one. I managed to record it on VHS. So, every once in a while I'd pop it in and, fast forward to the good parts and the Cap parts.
Yes.
And, then over the years I've had a few bootlegs. And when the first Avenger movie came out, somebody, I think it was my dad, gave me the official Universal DVD release of these. So,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I've I've been there with Reb Brown all the way, I guess.
Okay, well, shall we get into the first movie, and then we'll talk about our impressions on that?
Sure.
All right. This is Captain America, which premiered in January of 1979. We open with ex-motocross star Steve Rogers having just been mustered out of the U.S. Marines. I'll let that sink in for a little while. That's how far away from the original source material we are. He's tooling down the Pacific coast in his conversion van with a motorcycle strapped on the back. He stops off at a friend's place of business, where we learn that he's had Dr. Simon Mills trying to get in touch with him twice on the base and once at this shop, which is apparently Rogers' forwarding address. Jeff Hayden, an old friend of Steve's father, also gets in touch, and Steve agrees to meet with him that night after meeting Mills. He meets up with Mills and finds out that his father had created a super steroid called Flag for full latent ability gain from his own adrenal gland. While Mills has all of the notes and files, he's never been able to get the formula to work on another creature. He tells Rogers that his DNA is close enough to his father's that he should be able to take the formula and gain all the abilities his father had. Rogers refuses. On his way to meet up with Hayden, Rogers is ambushed by Colonel Decker, who uses an oil truck to create a slick road. This causes Rogers to lose control of his van and go over a cliff. The van is nearly totaled, but Rogers survives with only a ripped shirt. He rides his also undamaged motorcycle to Hayden's house, where he finds Hayden dying. As Rogers goes to call an ambulance, the killer takes a desk calendar and advanced camera off of Hayden's desk. He delivers this to Lou Brackett, an oil company CEO, no, not Roxxon Oil Company, just generic oil company, who is in the middle of building a neutron bomb in order to steal a boatload of gold. Mills, who was at the crime scene, tells Rogers that Hayden was working on a neutron bomb and must have given the information to someone. Rogers doesn't believe it, but he does go to meet with someone that claims to know what happened. This turns out to be the killer and Colonel Decker, who run Rogers off a very similar cliff, this time putting him in critical condition. In order to save Steve's life, Mills injects him with the Flag formula. This not only heals Rogers, but gives him super strength, super speed, and super senses. Rogers still refuses to become a guinea pig, but he eventually comes around to Mills' way of thinking when he's kidnapped and taken to a meat packing plant for disposal. Mills then tells Steve that his dad was a special agent, and so patriotic that people kiddingly called him Captain America. Rogers, ever the artist, whips up a sketch of an Evel Knievel-style uniform, which he then gives to Mills. Mills takes Rogers to a weapons testing site, where he's told that his van has been repaired and modified. It now conceals a Street Hawk-style motorcycle, whose windshield is a bulletproof frisbee weapon that kinda sorta looks like Captain America's shield. As Steve is trying the motorcycle out, he's attacked by a helicopter, which he jumps into and forces the pilot to land, after throwing the gunman out the window into a lake. This leads Mills to say that Steve Rogers will always be a target whenever he uses his abilities. When Hayden's daughter and Mills' assistant, Dr. Wendy Day, are kidnapped, Steve gets a uniform from Mills based on his sketch, and then goes to rescue them from the evil oil company. He manages to free them and get information on Brackett's plan. Mills and Cap then take a helicopter to track down the truck carrying Brackett and the bomb. They find the truck, land, and Cap takes to the road on his motorcycle. He catches up to the truck and climbs on board. Cap concocts a plan to redirect the truck's exhaust into the trailer, causing Brackett, who's riding there with the bomb, to call for help and have the truck pull over. Brackett passes out, and Cap takes care of the goons as soon as the truck is on the side of the road. Cap is shocked, I say, to discover that carbon monoxide poisoning doesn't agree with Brackett, and may cause the bomb to go off if the dead man's switch reading his pulse decides that he's dead. Luckily, Mills has an oxygen tank to hand. We leave off with Steve telling Mills that he'd like to honor his father's legacy, and then we see him ride up in a more traditional Captain America uniform which still has the cowl as a motorcycle helmet. So what do we think?
Oh, wow. You know, there's so many things. I can't help it. I guess there's a nostalgia for this. I mean, Captain America was always, I mean, everybody loves Spider-Man, but once you get past Spider-Man, Captain America is most definitely my favorite Marvel character. Sometimes it's more than Spider-Man. Sometimes it's a little bit less, but he's always the guy at Marvel for me. So right. As a kid, even though this is, Steve Rogers here is the polar opposite of the comic book Steve Rogers. The skinny, scrawny Steve Rogers who wanted desperately to serve his country and to become Captain America, to be, to volunteer for the Project Rebirth, where this Steve's a, hulking beefcake that gets out of the military and wants no part of the Captain America program, so it's like Bizarro Captain America. But despite all that, I mean, there's just something about it. I don't know. I can't help but like it. I think it's the theme song. The Mike Post theme song is just all kinds of awesome. I can just hum it in my head quite a bit. It's like it's still rolling around in there from the 70s. So I mean, this is your first time watching it. What did you think of it?
Well, much like with the Wonder Woman movie, which we covered on Supermates. Listen, people.
Yes.
It's one of those things where it looks like if you took away the shield and named him the Patriot, it'd be a perfectly decent movie.
Yes.
But putting that name Captain America on it just kind of, it's a little off. It's a lot off, really.
Yeah.
But I can't blame it, really. I can't blame it for that because look at every other superhero television property.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder Woman, not a huge amount of changes, but they did have significant changes.
Yeah.
The Incredible Hulk, a lot of changes there, but they worked really, really well.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the Incredible Hulk's kind of that kind of stops you from going completely off on these things because there's a lot changed. And I mean, the Hulk, the basic premise of the Hulk, other than him changing into the Hulk, the origin changed. There's no army chasing him. There's a reporter instead of General Ross. I mean, there's no supervillains, obviously. I mean, this is, and essentially this is them adapting the Captain America concept to the $6 Million Man concept. I mean, this is very unabashedly, quite similar to the $6 Million Man. I mean, you've got a guy that's, Simon Mills is Oscar Goldman.
Mm-hmm.
Cap's obviously Steve Rogers is Steve Austin. They even have him in the operating room in a very similar scene to We Can Rebuild Him, and there's the sound effects that he makes when he does things. And
that's what I wanted to ask you. I remember vaguely watching like the Incredible Hulk and Wonder Woman growing up, but were TV audiences back then really that dim that every time someone used a special power, they needed a sound cue for it? Every time. Incredible Hulk, Wonder Woman, Captain America, Spider-Man, $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman. Every time they're using a special power, there's a sound cue. I can get if he is bending the exhaust pipe of a truck with his bare hand, he's using his super strength. I don't need the ba-ba-ba-ba or whatever they played.
I'm with you. Yeah. I don't know what that is. I mean, it's like, I guess in a way it's kind of like, well, it's like now we've got, Superman can't just fly like he used to. He's got to have all this distortion field around him when he flies. And, it's like Smallville when he first, like Clark was possessed by, I don't know what it was. Was it red kryptonite? I don't know what it was, but when he actually flew and it wasn't really him, it was Cal or whatever. And they did that big thing where he kneels down and then all this distortion goes around him. It's enough to like knock his mom backwards. And, whatever happened to Christopher Reeve just kind of levitating off the ground. So we're kind of in the overdone visual effect era of superpowers. And back then it was the audio effect.
Right, yeah.
Superpowers.
And that's only because they couldn't afford the visual.
Right. The visuals didn't work. They didn't have the technology. We don't have the technology. Unlike the $6 Million Man. But, and I don't think you can overestimate the influence of Evel Knievel on this thing.
Definitely. That's why I put in the synopsis that it was an Evel Knievel suit.
Yeah, definitely. This could have been a variant outfit for the ideal Evel Knievel action figure. I mean, no doubt about it, especially this first one with the, it's basically like it's a solid blue suit with red and white, almost suspender-like stripes going down his shoulders, from his shoulders to down his chest into his abdomen. It looks like he's got suspenders on. But it looks very much like something you'd see Evel Knievel. And I mean, I think, the legacy of these films is really Captain America and his motorcycle.
Yeah.
I don't think, and I'm not saying I'm sure Captain America rode a motorcycle. I think there's even an old Golden Age cover where he's riding a motorcycle, but that wasn't his mode of transportation until these films, and this is carried over into the modern Marvel cinematic universe. I mean, Chris
Evans actually puts the shield on the front of the bike in the first Avenger.
Yes, and then that was just, I mean, they show him do it. I mean, it's like right in the camera. That was a nod to these movies.
Oh, definitely.
That was them saying wink, wink. We remember this. We're not going to give Reb Brown a cameo, but here you go. I thought it was funny. I didn't even think about it before until you were synopsizing there. That how ironic was it that they kidnapped Steve Rogers, Reb Brown, and took him to a meat packing plant.
I know. That's actually my note. Is where did I write it? My note is the slab of beef ends up at a meat packer's.
That dude was huge. I mean,
oh man, yeah. Now my only issue was I have cast a guy built like that as Captain America. No problem at all. Mm-hmm. Try and get a stuntman that's of the same body type.
Right. Yeah.
You watch the guy that's actually riding the motorcycle or doing the jump.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a skinny guy.
Right.
He doesn't have these 5-foot shoulders or anything. It threw me right out of it. It's like, that isn't him.
Right. Where was Lou Ferrigno's stunt double that week? I mean,
yeah.
Because he's a little bit smaller than Lou. If you watch the Hulk, it's kind of like the same thing, but he's probably about the same size as Reb Brown, So.
Chris, everybody's smaller than Lou Ferrigno. Have you seen the man?
I have seen him up close. Yes.
God damn.
Yeah, I know. It's like, and he is freaking, I mean, his arms are the size of my torso, and I'm not skinny. It's like,
well, I follow him on Facebook, and he posted the Mr. Universe picture the other day with him and Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Mm-hmm.
And Schwarzenegger's on top of the podium because he won, and Ferrigno is standing flat-footed next to him, and they're about the same height.
Yeah.
I saw that. I'm like, damn, that man is huge.
He is. As much as I love the Hulk, but they finally got the Hulk right, I feel like, in the Avengers movies, and it doesn't pull me out of it anymore, that it's a CGI creation, and I like Mark Ruffalo, but I'm like, why can't they just Hobbitize the Hulk in reverse? Hobbitize, Ferrigno.
Right.
Ferrigno, make him bigger than everybody else, but use him.
Well, apparently there is a little bit of a nod to that because all of the Hulk's dialogue is Lou Ferrigno.
It's Lou Ferrigno, yeah. It does all the growls and grunts, and yeah, that is true, yeah. So I almost forget that sometimes, but yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But this is not an Incredible Hulk podcast.
No, it's not Incredible Hulk.
Boy, we went off the rails real quick on this one.
Yeah. Do you want to do some bit by bit stuff, notes and things?
The way I wrote my notes is I just wrote them as I was watching the movie.
Okay.
And the first one I have is, now this is not the Mike Post Captain America theme, but the opening music does not grab me.
No.
It's just like this pastoral, because he's driving down the highway and all, and it's not Captain America. It's not what I think of. Like later on, when you get the theme, it's why couldn't you put that at the beginning to draw me right into it? I don't need to see him driving down this highway for 10 minutes while you run credits.
Yeah. One of the many padded segments of this movie.
Oh, the padding in this movie was just amazing. It's like, I am going to go over there, and you see every single step takes.
Yeah.
You see all of the procedures to land the helicopter.
Oh, gosh.
I don't care. Just say we're going. Oh, look, there's a spot there, and the next thing it's on the ground. But if you cut all that, it would probably be about 45 minutes long.
Yeah, I mean, was this sponsored by Bell Helicopter? I mean, what, I mean, there's less shots of the Batcopter in the Batman movie, this 1966 Batman movie, and you want to see that,
Yeah.
But you're like, like you're right. When Simon, we're jumping ahead, but when Simon and him are following, and Steve are following the trailer, I mean, they show every second of him landing that helicopter, cut, and then show him land, and then show the motorcycle shoot out of it. I know they wanted to get the big dramatic, the motorcycle shoots out of it off the cliff thing, but it's like, God, somebody, if they'd cut this down, this would have been like an hour. It's like,
yeah, really,
not a 2-hour movie. But the music at the beginning, it's kind of weird because they played that kind of, like you said, pastoral music, like elevator music at the beginning, but they show the comic book Captain America logo, the curved 70s Captain America logo. I think that might be a Jim Steranko design, because I think that came up on the issues he drew in the late 60s. Because it switched to that, like the issue when he drew 3 issues of Cap, 3 or 4, and I mean it comes up on the screen, so that kind of like, oh, that's cool. That's Captain America's logo to me, because that's what it looked like for years when I was buying the comics. So
right, that
was cool. But yeah, it's totally undercut by this lifetime movie music underneath.
Now, I don't know how the Marines operated back then, but we are told that Steve Rogers just was mustered out as a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
For being just out of the Corps, he has a huge amount of hair on his head.
Yeah, he does.
I mean, it's like he started, I got a year left, let me not get a haircut anymore.
Yeah.
I understand that style and but then don't say he just got out of the Marines. Say that, he got out of the Marines a year ago and's been traveling.
Right, he's been driving across the country or something.
Right, yeah, just real easy way to do it. But
right. And apparently he's a motocross guy and a surfer dude, because he's got a history with the guy that runs the surf shack.
Right.
And he had a forwarding address there, so that's pretty far from the comic book Steve Rogers as well.
Well, I want to know how he fit everything in, because he was a motocross champion.
Mm-hmm.
He is a very talented artist, and that's not something that you just get naturally. You have to have some training for that.
Right.
He's been in the Marines.
Mm-hmm.
He has at least some scientific training, probably from his dad.
Yeah.
How old is he supposed to be?
Well, and they said I think they inferred that he went to military school all his life, and that's kind of why he didn't know as much about his dad as you would have thought he would.
That's another thing. He was in the Marines, correct?
Uh-huh.
He said that he went to West Point. That's the Army, people.
Yes.
The Marines is Annapolis.
That's right. You're right. I didn't even catch that. He transferred over.
He tried to go into the Army and they didn't want him, so they put him in the Marines.
Yeah, that's not usually doesn't go that way, does it?
No, it does not. Once you're in that branch, that's the branch you're in.
Yeah, that's right. And then everybody but Steve seems to be worried about him getting, they either want him to get the flag formula or they're afraid he's going to get it. Like Brackett knows about Steve and his potential to get this flag formula and become a problem. And it's like, okay, how did they know that? Did Hayden tell them? And why did they set up this elaborate scheme to kill him with oil slick on the road? Couldn't they just snuck up to him and put a bullet in his head? I mean,
we're back to the Batman principle here.
Yeah, that's right.
We have Batman or Steve Rogers dead to rights. Let's put him in this long, convoluted death machine,
right,
and walk away.
Yeah.
And I have to say that crash, that had to be the longest out of control spin I've ever seen. He hits that oil and it's like and crash.
It reminded me, there's a Adventures of Superman episode. I think it's one of the very last ones. I think it's called The Perils of Superman. And it's like this criminal in a lead mask targets the Daily Planet staff. He kidnaps all of them, including
I've seen that one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. Like Perry White's on the saw. in the sawmill with on the log, going toward and Lois is on the train tracks. They dip Clark in acid and he comes out as Superman, which is cool. But Jimmy Olsen is, I know it's your favorite guy from the Fight Club. Jack Kirby, Jimmy Olsen would have kicked Archie's ass. That's all I'm going to say. But anyway, so Jimmy's driving, and his steering wheel light comes off and his brakes go out. And it's ridiculous how long he stays on the road. It reminded me of the same thing. I'm like, okay, at what point are you going to crash?
Yeah.
But yeah, the elaborate way, and they used the guy's own oil truck. I know. Yeah. Come on.
But it was Colonel Decker. He doesn't have all the best plots. And my note for that is, he's got Colonel Decker after him. Must be the van.
That's right.
Because the van, it's this brown van, and it's got like blue and gray line across it that swoops up at the end. I'm like, you change the colors in that, it's the A-Team van.
That's right. With another Mike Post theme song.
Exactly, yes.
So Flag stands for full latent ability game. Yes. I wonder how long it took him to come up with that. It's like Firestorm on the Flash. Let's see.
Apparently, they couldn't use Super Soldier Serum for some weird reason.
Yeah, but they call it a super steroid, though.
Yes. Like this guy needs a steroid. Jeez.
He's eating 50 chickens a day. He doesn't need a steroid. Oh, man. It's actually, it's funny because there's all this scientific talk, and then Simon says, you got your cells from your dad. It's like, no, I don't think cells work that way. I think he's talking about DNA, dude. It's like...
It was the 70s. They didn't know any better.
Right. We don't know if people know what DNA means. So, oh, yeah. So when Steve, they kidnap Steve and he goes at the meat packing plant, he grabs a hold of the hook, one of the hooks that the meat hangs on, and slides away very slowly. It's not like a zip line. He's moving very slowly. And it's like, okay, how bad these guys, they must be descendants of Imperial stormtroopers because they're horrible shots if they can't hit that literally hanging target right there.
Now, I know it's a different scene, but when he's being chased by the guy in the helicopter.
Oh, yeah.
All right. He's on his motorcycle.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the shield in front of him as the windshield, which has a screw through the back of it. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yes, I did. It's an adamantium screw. It works.
So the guy's shooting at him. Now remember, the helicopter is chasing him. The helicopter's behind him. The guy's shooting at him. The bullets hit the front of the shield. Are these Australian bullets? Do they, boomerang back? What the hell?
Yeah, and that guy is the worst shot ever because he's literally, he's got a high-powered rifle. He's literally about maybe 30 feet away from him?
Yeah.
And he can't hit him. And they stay right on top of him. I mean, and how did a helicopter, what kind of army base is this?
A very poor one, apparently.
Yeah. I mean, I know Gomer Pyle was in the Marines, but was he was he standing guard? Golly, Sergeant Carter, is that on the board? I was like, Shazam! It's like this, and Simon notices it, and then finally the MPs drive up, and he gets in the Jeep with them. I'm like, how did
those are the only two MPs for the entire base.
Right?
They were busy.
Yeah, it's like budget cut, sir. Yeah, that just man. Well, and the whole thing that really got me is, okay, Steve's dad was this scientist. He developed Flag. He injected himself. He used his abilities to fight crime and serve his country. And they apparently mockingly called him Captain America.
Right.
But at the end, because Marvel apparently had a snit about his costume, Steve wears his father's Captain America costume. So if he was only jokingly called Captain America, then why did he have a costume that was red, white, and blue and very patriotic? I mean, it's like if you wear something like that, somebody's going to name you if you don't name yourself.
Yeah,
You know?
I didn't understand that either. It's like they didn't bother to go back and just reshoot the scene or just cut that little mockingly called or whatever out. Just
Right.
Just re-edit. It's not that hard.
Right, just have a close up of Reb Brown, pull another close up from him and have what's his name that played Simon come in, Lynn Berman come in and do a loop and say your father's code name was Captain America. The end.
And it's not like the movie had didn't have any other scenes in it where you focused on someone that wasn't talking.
Right. Yeah, it was the 70s. Of course it had that.
Yeah, it's like, he's talking, pretty girl.
And speaking of which, you've got the assistant Wendy Day.
Yes.
And which Stan Lee wouldn't even come up with a name like that. So she and Steve are on the beach and they just start like making out. It's like it's out of no. I mean, she's very attractive.
Yeah.
She was Jessica on Logan's Run, the TV show. And so she's attractive. Obviously, he's a good-looking guy, but it's like there was nothing between them before, and it's all of a sudden they just start sucking face.
Yeah,
because,
well, I knew that was going to happen as soon as they introduced her in the very first scene. My note is introducing the love interest / doctor.
Right. Yeah, it's like there has to be. I mean, there's no slow buildup of like if this was a TV show that they like eventually fall in love or reveal their feelings for one another. No, they like meet. And the next time they meet, they're on the beach. She's in a skimpy bathing suit, and they start making out.
Yeah. Whatever.
Even back then, superhero movies had to shoehorn the romantic interest in there. So there you go.
Oh, and it's funny when they're talking about the neutron bomb,
Mm-hmm.
and this is Simon Mills telling Steve this.
Yeah.
And they're talking about the project and why Hayden was working on it. And here's Mills's line, and I wrote this down exactly. One of the most secret and closely guarded projects this nation has. What's Steve's response? Never heard of it. Well, duh! It's a closely guarded secret. Why wouldn't a former Marine know about it?
That didn't come up in our last book group or something else. Speaking of this, the Brackett's plan is, I mean, the plan you don't even know what his plan is till like toward the end of the movie. You really don't know why obviously, if he had a neutron bomb, he could do something with it, but his plan is to go to a gold depository and to detonate this bomb. And I guess he's going to like be there when it goes off, and he's got to have this radiation suit because a neutron bomb will kill anybody that's in the vicinity that doesn't have a radiation suit on, but it won't destroy the gold. And so it's kind of like the opposite of Goldfinger.
Yeah,
they're going to irradiate the gold, and so it'll destroy the U.S. economy and blah blah blah. And so it's the opposite of that. And he's just going to apparently kill everybody in the vicinity, load the gold up on the truck, and head to Mexico or something. Or it's like, okay, how does that make any? I don't care what kind of radiation suit you got on. If this thing kills, if you're right there, it's probably going to just incinerate you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like.
Well, they're still using duck and cover technology, apparently.
That's right.
Here, you'll be fine. Just wrap this tin foil around you. You'll be good.
Yeah, that's right. It's like a baked potato. But, and then he's got when Steve catches up to him, which, the stunt work in this movie is actually, other than, like you said, the stuntman being too small, but, quite a bit of it looks like it's Reb Brown. And in fact, Reb Brown in that, The Age of TV Heroes book that Tomorrow's published, he actually says he did the jump to the helicopter stunt himself. So
okay. I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but, that looks like it's him on the tractor trailer, walking around quite a bit. And those stunts are pretty well done. And I like all that. But the end is just like, okay, they're going to give this old guy CPR. That's the climax of the movie.
Yeah, it just ends. It's like, okay, well, he's not going to die. We're done.
Right.
What? Come
Right.
on,
There's-
really?
The biggest thing about it is he gets, after all that buildup, he rides the motorcycle, he gets on the truck, he bends the pipe down and puts the carbon monoxide in the truck and knocks the goons out in the truck and then that's and then gives this guy CPR. Him and Simon give him CPR and the little thing that the dead man switch that looks very, very flimsy.
Well, not only that, it's here's another thing. Apparently, he was explosive ordnance in the Marines because he looks at, well, that looks like a dead man switch. And I'm looking at it, looks like a box with lights and a yellow switch on the side of it. How do you know it's a dead man switch?
It looks like a Mattel Pocket Pong from 1979 or something. That's what it really looks like, but
It's a little handheld Simon game.
Right. There you go. Oh, but yeah. And then, of course, the one thing that, and we didn't get into this a whole lot, but Hayden's got a daughter, and she's like, why is she even in this movie? Just so there'd be another potential love interest or damsel in distress. I really don't know.
I don't know. I have to wonder what exactly they're setting up if it got picked up to series, and maybe she was going to be a recurring character in that.
Maybe.
I mean, the whole thing, it's set up so that he ends up like Knight Rider or the A-Team, where he's going to end up traveling to town and solving whatever problem of the week.
Right.
So maybe she was going to be in that as, like you said, as a competing love interest or whatever. But it did seem kind of forced, other than to give a little bit more backstory on Hayden. Okay, why did he turn traitor? Well, it turns out that the oil tycoon faked his wife's death in a plane crash.
Yeah.
And then had her kidnapped, and he was the only one that knew that, and that's why he was turning over these secrets. It's, okay, I give you this, you give me my wife back.
Right. And it's just the fact that the mom comes in at the end, it's like, okay, she's not dead. It's what?
Yeah.
It's really strange.
Here, let's force a happy ending in 5 minutes.
Right. And then they had to shoehorn the almost classic costume scene in, which, because Marvel said no. So you have to have the real Captain America suit or something close to it. So he rides it at the end in it.
And that suit, if he would actually take the helmet off, would be fine, because he has on a mask, a blue mask, under the helmet.
Yeah.
So if he was to take the helmet off, I could, well, except for the Tupperware shield he still has, but I could see that because it looks from the neck down, looks perfect.
Well, it does, and I agree, and it's very tight on him, though. It's like 2 sizes too small to show off his beefy physique. But if he washes that thing, he's totally screwed. But let's talk about the shield. The shield, everybody knows the shield is transparent, other than the red stripes, and there's a blue star in the center, instead of to the white star, and the thing with the shield is that it looks very flimsy. It looks very plastic. And when the shield is thrown and it's flying through the air, it goes incredibly slow.
And anyone can throw it and have it return.
Right.
Because Mills says, oh, and look at this. And he takes it off the bike and throws it, and it comes right back to him.
Right.
Okay, no special skill, or how's it do this? I mean,
right.
It's manufactured in Australia? What?
They're getting the same place they got the bullets from the sniper.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, it's like if they just sped the film up, just speed the film up. I mean, it's just like this annoying thing hovering in the air. That's like,
and they keep the camera on it.
Yeah,
it's like, it's going. Okay, it's coming back. Still coming back. And there it is.
I know we're all spoiled by the modern Marvel movies and the way that they do the shield, and they say a lot of it's just the way Chris Evans has figured out how to look like he's throwing it, Right. And sometimes he actually throws something, and sometimes he has nothing in his hand, but it's just he sells it, and it's kind of like Christopher Reeve selling his flying as Superman. But this, I mean, That is the one thing. As cool as the motorcycle is, the shield, when they uses it as in the classic Frisbee style of Captain America, that kills it.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally just does not work at all.
Hammond's Spider-Man webs were more believable than that.
And they're not believable at all.
Exactly.
Yes, it's very much so. You're right. Yes. Yeah. Well, one thing I did like at the very end, you got a nice John Romita Captain America image at the very end of the movie. And
they say Captain America is owned by Marvel Comics Group, and they have the beautiful image of the real Captain America standing there. It's gorgeous.
I think it's the old corner box image from the 70s, like when it was Captain America and the Falcon. It looked like the same image you'd see a lot back then that they put up. Oh, I think that's on the shirt I got. This is totally off. Well, it's not completely off topic. I got a shirt the other day at Kohl's that's the Mad Bomb cover. The Captain America, Jack Kirby. It's like Kirby's back and better than ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got that. I was like, I bought that. And I wore it when we went to the Age of Ultron the other night. It's like Nerd Prom. Yeah, I got a new shirt. But yeah, it's awesome. The big thing with this, my big problem with this, other than like you said, it's not very Captain America-like, but they did keep, I don't know, it's like they kept some elements of it and they mixed things around, but again, it's like I feel like you can't complain it too much because there's the Hulk over here, you know, but the difference is the Hulk really worked.
Well, I think part of that was Bixby being such a amazing actor and believing in the project.
Yeah.
Reb Brown, great guy, passable actor.
Right. Yes.
I can't say he cannot act because he does do some good stuff, and we'll see in the second movie he has some good emotional scenes.
Yeah.
He can't sell it like Bixby.
No.
And I think that's the downfall. All these superhero stuff things, unless it is specifically camp like Adam West, you don't have the lead outside of Linda Carter and Bill Bixby believing in it enough to suck you into it.
Right. Yeah.
Every other time they tried it, it just couldn't work. It was too far out there, and the actors just didn't sell it.
Right. That's a good point. Yeah. Did you? I haven't seen Reb Brown in a lot of other stuff. I've seen him in guest spots. I remember he was on an episode of Happy Days that I saw not too long ago, probably around this same time where he was going to beat Ralph Malph up or something. And I mean, so you had Donnie Most bumping into him and freaking out, and he was this huge towering wave Reb Brown. So but I've never seen You're the Hunter from the Future movie. Have you ever seen that?
I have not. No, but apparently he wasn't acting for a good long time. I think he had bit parts. There were two. He and Lou Ferrigno, get this, were in two action movies.
Yeah.
Cage in 1989 and Cage 2 in 1994. After that, he did not act again for like 15 years.
Wow. I knew that because there was a podcast, Comic Book Central, had an interview with him. Have you ever listened to that show? That's a great show, Comic Book Central. Joe Stuber hosts that. He gets interviews with people that I've never seen. He's interviewing people from the Legends of the Superhero specials right now. And he had one with Reb Brown, and it was really an interesting episode. He seemed like a really just down to earth guy. And I mean, he comes across here as very likable, and he seems like he really is very likable in real life. But yeah, he mentioned working with Lou Ferrigno in those movies, so that's as close to a Hulk Captain America team up as you're gonna get, And it sounded like it was a direct to video late 80s, 90s movie, but. Yeah, I think he said something about he'd like to, make a cameo in one of the Marvel movies. I wish they'd sneak him in somewhere because Lou Ferrigno himself has been in both Hulk movies.
Right.
And, of course, Nicholas Hammond wasn't in any of the Spider-Man movies either. So.
No, I would like to see that maybe in Civil War or something. It's Stan Lee and Reb Brown walking down the street.
There you go. Speaking of Nicholas Hammond, there is a connection. The Heather Menzies, who plays Wendy Day, was another one of the Von Trapp kids in The Sound of Music, along with Nicholas Hammond.
Okay.
So there's a connection to Spider-Man there. And she was actually married to Robert Urich, who was on SWAT with Brackett, the guy that played Brackett, Steve Forrest. Because they were, he was the leader on Hondo on SWAT. There's if you want to recreate this Captain America movie, you can get your Mego Captain America and your LJN produced SWAT figure of Hondo, and borrow Evel Knievel's motorcycle and rev it up and.
I'm sure someone's done a repaint of that motorcycle as the Captain America one.
There's a guy, when I hang out on the MegoMuseum.com board, there's a guy named Austin Huff who does some great custom Megos. He did a Reb Brown Captain America in his original suit from this movie.
Nice.
That is dead on. I mean, it's like, holy cow, I would buy that. I mean, it's just as goofy as the suit is, I would buy that, yeah. One other Marvel connection, Lynn Berman, that played Simon, he was the voice of Rocket Robin Hood, which is a Canadian-produced cartoon I've heard of. I've never seen it. It was produced by Grant Ray Lawrence Productions, which produced the Marvel superheroes cartoons of the 60s and the Spider-Man cartoon. And he was the voice of Hercules in the Thor segments on that Marvel superheroes cartoon.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So there you go. So the Marvel Hercules, so lots of, weird connections there. Another thing, I kept trying to figure out who the henchman was. The one guy that the very, very gaunt-faced...
the guy that actually killed Hayden.
Right. It's Joseph Ruskin. He was on several different iterations of Star Trek, but he's probably most famous for being Galt on the Gamesters of Triskelion.
Aha!
Yeah. The episode where they torture him and make him fight, and and Chekhov gets stuck with the yellow chick, and Kirk makes out with the green-haired chick with the silver bikini on. Yeah, that one. So he's the enforcer guy there with looks like Ming the Merciless in that one.
Yeah. I knew I recognized him from somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, I know that guy, but with hair I didn't quite get it. And the writer on this, Don Ingalls, I love IMDb. The writer on this, Don Ingalls, actually wrote 2 Star Trek episodes from the original series, A Private Little War, and, in my opinion, the absolute worst episode of classic Star Trek. Worse than Spock's brain, The Alternative Factor, the one with Lazarus.
Oh, right.
The
guy who later went on to become a Klingon.
Yes. That guy just kept, that episode just makes absolutely no sense. It's that guy falling off rocks for like an hour.
The pain! Ah!
And weird, bad 60s special, quote-unquote, effects.
Yeah. How many times can they go down the antimatter corridor?
Right. And it should have been a really good one. The premise is great. It's like multiple Earth stories, but and like even somewhat like touching on things that Crisis on Infinite Earths would touch on, but it's just handled very poorly.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. That is not a good episode at all.
No. Well, I think that's all I got on this one.
Okay, so shall we move on to Captain America 2?
Yes.
All right, now Captain America 2, subtitled Death Too Soon, came out in November of 1979, so 11 months after the first Captain America movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, after a recycled opening shot from the first film, we come upon Steve Rogers sketching an old woman in a park. He jumps in the way of an errant Frisbee player who nearly runs into her. She's a little more upset about it than she should be and confides in Steve that all of her friends are being mugged as soon as they cash their pension checks. Steve tells her to cash hers as soon as she can. When she does, she has her purse snatched by a slumming biker gang, and then Captain America shows up and foils the robbery. Meanwhile, Dr. Mills is irate that Professor Ilson didn't show up to a Senate committee hearing. He storms into Ilson's lab over the protests of the assistant and finds it trashed. The only clue about what happened is a broken piece of glass with the letters MIGU written on it. Mills believes that this refers to the terrorist general in quotes, Miguel, and calls in Captain America. Turns out he was right, and Miguel is in a federal prison, not as a prisoner, but posing as the warden as a cover. He has Ilson captive and is forcing him to create a formula that will cause people and animals to age 39 days per hour. He plans to release this in the air over Portland, Oregon, unless the United States government pays him $1 billion. Yes, that's billion with a B. No Dr. Evil here. Mills and Rogers, along with Dr. Day, now recast with Connie Selica in the role, figure out that Ilson will need a specific ingredient for his work, and it only comes from Ecuador. Captain America investigates a shipment that has just come in from that country and finds the ingredient, as well as a lot of overacting. Steve Rogers then tails the shipment to a small town, but he loses it. Sticking around, Rogers finds that everyone in the town is acting strangely, including the vet, who hasn't had a patient with 4 legs all day, but has seen plenty with 2. After being that creepy stranger with a van that wants to talk to a little boy, Rogers is asked to leave by a couple of big guys, who just happen to be the ones driving the van with Ilson's ingredient in it. He says he'll leave, but he keeps snooping, eventually meeting back up with the mother of Peter, the boy from before, who is named Helen. She won't help him, but instead also asks him to leave the town. Realizing that he didn't take the hint, the guys are back with friends and baseball bats. Steve handily defeats them, though, and all it cost him was a shirt. Helen, seeing that he's someone who actually stand up for the town, takes him back to her farm for a new shirt and some lunch. While they're there, they discover that Peter's pet lamb has grown old and died. Meanwhile, Mills and Day are brought a cougar cub, who they're told has been given the aging formula. They do some tests and confirm that it has been, and the formula works exactly as Miguel has said. Everett Bliss, who works for the president, tells them that they will not negotiate with terrorists. Upon receiving word of this, Miguel releases the formula over Portland and now demands $2 billion for the antidote. Helen eventually spills the beans that her town was dosed with the formula 3 weeks ago, and the supposed vet has been giving them small injections of the antidote. Rogers works out where the vet might have been due to the mileage on his long drive out of town, as well as some stuff found on the tires, and comes up with the prison that Miguel is at. Captain America breaks into the prison and frees Professor Ilson, but it turns out that Miguel has all the formula and antidote with him, and that he just drove out of the gate. Cap then gets to his motorcycle, throws it on top of the wall, and rides off. Instead of going splat, he unfurls a hang glider from the TARDIS-like rear of the bike and flies down Miguel's car. After a quick fight in the woods, Miguel throws a bottle of the formula at Cap, who breaks it with his shield. The formula splashes back on Miguel, showing that he is chosen poorly. Mills and Rogers take to the air and distribute the antidote to the people of Portland, who have only aged about 10 months, meaning that this whole incident has taken under 8 hours. That was definitely more like a TV episode than a movie, really.
Yeah. I think so. I do think overall it's a much tighter story. It actually, the plot actually makes some amount of sense.
Yes.
And you've got a much better villain in Christopher Lee as Miguel.
you can't go wrong with Christopher Lee.
Right. I mean, it's just like Ricardo Montalban being in the Wonder Woman movie.
Yes.
His very presence elevates it. Yeah. And there's a lot less padding in this one. I mean, there's some padding, but there's a lot of this that feels like an Incredible Hulk episode, because you've got Steve becoming involved with people. He's come into this town. He becomes involved in what's going on. I mean, usually on the Incredible Hulk, it wasn't a scientific-y plot like this, a science fiction-y plot. But he kind of falls for the mom, Helen, and it just feels like maybe they were trying to inject a little bit of that Hulk formula into this, as it was maybe going to potentially become episodic,
And it sounds like this easily could have been a 2-part episode.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they did the movie, then they were planning on going to series, and they had this script. And it's like, okay, here's our first 2-parter, and it didn't get picked up. So, we got the script, we paid for it. What the hell? Let's do it. The original actress wasn't available, so what the hell? Bring in Connie Selica.
Right. A pre-Greatest American Hero Connie Selica.
Yes.
Pre-John Tesh, Connie Selica.
Oh, it's funny. I know I'm jumping all over the place here, but when he gets into the fight with the 5 guys, and he's throwing them all over, that was some really good examples of, he has superpowers. He, rips out a support post on a deck, makes him go flying and everything.
Yeah.
But the only thing that happens to him is he gets his shirt ripped. So I'm watching this with my wife, and she turns to me and says, "Look, he has a Captain Kirk shirt."
It's like that Futurama episode where Kirk like rips his shirt beforehand, make sure it rips.
Do you think Reb Brown had to shave his chest like William Shatner did?
Probably so. That fight scene's actually pretty cool. It's kind of like Walking Tall meets the Incredible Hulk. It's like all these guys with ball bats, and when he takes that deck out and they all slide down, that's actually pretty cool. I mean, Steve's like really mad. He's like, "Come on!" And he's like all raged out.
Because the
rage.
The one guy pokes him with a bat, and he's like, "Okay, I'm going." And another guy pokes him with that and says, "Don't do that again." Yeah. The third guy pokes him, and he says, "3 strikes, you're out." Grabs the bat and starts swinging the guy all around.
And he just beats the crud out of it. And they keep coming at him. I'm like, dude, I would run in the other direction.
Yeah, you see this guy just bodily, and he takes the one bat, and that was the best part of this. He's got a bat in his hand. The other guy comes, and it's like they're sword fighting.
Yeah.
And he hits the bat so hard, the bats break.
Yeah.
And you'd see the guy just look at it. Ah!
Yeah. Can you imagine what that felt like in your hand when that happened?
Yeah.
Bad vibrations? Going back to the beginning, Steve's talking to this old woman, and he kind of sets her up as bait. I mean, he's like, you go ahead and cash your check. You cash your check, it'll be okay. Go cash your check. And he's following her in the van. But he's not following her like right behind her. He's in the van as Steve, and he changes really quick, obviously, and launches out of the van. So you hear the theme music, and it looks really cool. But what if this guy shanked the old woman?
Yeah, really. I'm not kidding. This is a biker gang.
Yeah.
They got the leathers, they got everything, and they're mugging old people. How the mighty have fallen.
That's right. Well, they're a dune buggy gang because they.
Okay. So he has his super motorcycle,
mm-hmm.
which has the rocket boost and everything, and he uses it. He chases the guy on foot down. Now the guy on foot who has the purse, he throws it to a guy in a dune buggy, and Captain America catches it and brings it back to the old lady.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. Guy in the dune buggy comes back. And Cap gets off of the bike and runs after him on foot.
Yes. And they play the bionic sound.
Yeah, they play the bionic sound, and they speed up the film.
Yeah.
Because suddenly the waves are crashing twice as fast.
Yeah.
Just stay on the damn bike.
And then he pulls the guy out of the dune buggy on a beach full of people, and the dune buggy's still going.
And the dune buggy goes into the ocean eventually.
Yeah, after it runs over like 3 kids, a couple, another old person, a dog. I mean, it's like, and then before all that, you have probably the worst scene with the shield, because he throws the shield, and then they punk with the knife. This guy's got a knife on him, and he's like, and he's not paying attention. He looks as the shield goes past him, and then it shows Cap like, yeah, you're going to get it, buddy, because it's coming back. But it's so slow, and when it hits the guy, I mean, it looks like, it's like the cellophane S from Superman 2. That was a minor inconvenience,
Yeah, it's like, boink.
But the guy overreacts. The thug, he does every bodily contortion that you could ever imagine. His eyes roll up in his head as he hits the ground after this, flimsy plastic. I mean, if you got hit with a real Frisbee, it would hurt a lot more than this thing.
The only guy in the movie that overacts worse than that one is the guy on the loading dock. When Cap just smacks him with the shield, and he's like, clap.
Right. Oh, the loading dock scene. I mean, what was up with that? I mean, I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but
yeah,
he barrels through there, and he doesn't know if some of those guys are like real dock workers. They're probably not all involved in this illegal, smuggling operation or whatever's going on. And he comes in as Captain America and tears the crap out of the whole place and throws people around and, fights with a forklift. And I mean, my one real problem with this movie is there was an edict from somebody that said he has to be in costume this many minutes in the movie. And they forced it. this would have made more sense for Steve to sneak in, look in the crate, maybe get in a fight with one guy or something, and then, you know, get the drug and throw it to Wendy, which when he throws it to her, that is the most ludicrous part in this movie, which there's lots of ludicrous parts. But he throws it in the air over a building, and it magically lands in her passenger seat in her convertible.
Yeah. Well, I can kind of understand them wanting him more in the costume, because he didn't show up in costume in the first movie until 1 hour and 14 minutes in.
Right.
So I can kind of see that. But yeah, this whole thing, okay, he knocks out all the dock workers. Fine. Mm-hmm. He destroys a bunch of boxes. Then he goes over and he very carefully opens the crate. And there are 2 boxes inside. Then he punches open the 1 box. Yeah. Well, either you're being careful or you're not. Make up your mind.
Yeah, he's a very loud, stealthy. He's got, you know, it's like I didn't really get that. And there's a scene later in the movie when, and we're jumping ahead here, but when Steve, he gets put in jail because he fought with the guys and they're basically trying to contain him. They throw him in the jail and he breaks out and they're like, you know, they see the bars bent. What happened? They go outside. Captain America rides by on his motorcycle. And at no point did the villains know Captain America was involved in this plot at all. They didn't know he was on to them. And they're like, it's Captain America. They recognize him, which I guess he's not a very good secret agent because everybody knows who he is. And he's riding around with his motorcycle. And then it's a very cool action scene. He gets chased by these guys with jeeps with machine guns. He gets shot off into a dam on the motorcycle, and he had a busted lip earlier from the fight with the guys, but he somehow survives crashing down the side of a dam.
Yeah, he jumps like he's going over the jeeps, and somehow, I guess a gust of wind, something, he ends up going over the side of the dam,
right,
smacking it on the way down,
yeah,
and landing in the water. Then they shoot at him.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
I don't get why it's like, okay, I'm going to show him I'm Captain America now for no good reason.
Well, the guy's line, though, is Captain America broke Rogers out of jail.
Yeah.
That's a huge jump in logic there. I would have been, we have one stranger in town, who's built like Captain America, has apparent super strength,
right,
but he can't be Captain America.
Right.
Captain America doesn't draw pictures. Everyone knows that.
If he was the secret identity of Captain America, he'd have glasses on.
Oh, and this movie came out November of the same year as the first one. Apparently, he has been very busy in those 11 months because not only do these guys know he's Captain America, they know what he can do on the motorcycle.
Yeah.
So he's been doing a lot of not so secret agenting.
Right. I mean, I guess he's just out in the open as Cap, but it still didn't make any sense to tip off those guys that Captain America was on this case. It's like that is another one of those cases of we've got to get some more Cap in this movie. Here, put it in this scene, you know.
Yeah.
Which, you know, the thing with jumping back again, the plot, the one thing, here's another scientist working for National Security Labs that is either compromised or kidnapped. Either way, they really need to keep better tabs on their scientists.
Yeah, well, the assistant, as Mills is going in, the assistant, no, it's fine. We always lose track of him for days at a time.
Yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
What kind of security do you people have here?
That's right. It's like he could be dead in there for all they know.
Yeah, really. And no one has a key.
Right.
They have to blow the lock apart in order to get into the lab to find his trash.
Yeah.
How did the bad guys get in?
Speaking of convenience, you know, it's very convenient that Steve suddenly has a cat.
Yeah. Not only does he suddenly have a cat when he needs it, it suddenly disappears when he doesn't.
Right. And at the end, he gives the kid a dog. I'm like, why didn't he give him the cat?
Yeah, because I was wondering where the cat went. And he said, well, you know, maybe you need a new pet. Oh, okay, well, there's the cat. No, it's a dog. What the hell?
Well, you know, it's like the vet was, you know, the vet in the town wasn't really a vet. He was acting like a vet and inoculating everybody with enough of the antidote to keep the aging at bay as they tested it on this town. And Steve just happens to have a cat, and he's painting the cat out in the park in front in the town, and that's when the thugs first come up to him. But it's like, okay, he had the cat before we knew that the vet was involved. So it's like, how convenient was it for him to have this mystery cat out of nowhere?
Oh, and I know, it was a more innocent time and everything, but you have this big stranger in town who is petting his cat, and he wants to talk to your little boy, and he wants to take your little boy to have him show him all the nice horse trails around here.
Right. It's like
not creepy at all, is it?
Stranger danger. He's got a van. I mean, I'm sure it's full of candy. I mean, it's like it's so. I mean, yes, you're right. It's a more innocent time. But even I was a kid back then. I was warned about people in vans. So it's. I can't believe somebody didn't say, maybe we shouldn't. But they had to get the relationship with the mom going. Which seemed to, but she talked to him at first, and then when she come out of the doctor's office, she got instantly snippy with him. It's like they didn't. I guess they wanted to show how conflicted she was, keeping up this facade of what was going on in the town.
See, I read it like, okay, you're a new guy. Yeah, we'll talk to you. Be polite. Then you come out and you're still talking to my kid. You're not talking to me. You're talking to my kid. Get the hell out.
That could be it. That's true. Another little semi-Marvel cameo, when they show Portland, downtown Portland, and the plane is skywriting, and that's how Miguel drops the drug, the aging compound on Portland. And the guy, there's an actor or character we see in the crowd who has several lines of dialogue. That's actually Alex Hyde White, who later plays Reed Richards in the unreleased Roger Corman Fantastic Four movie.
Aha! Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. So there's another Marvel semi cameo there. So
and I remember that name because at the end of when we're watching the credits, my wife is a huge Scooby-Doo fan.
Yeah. Oh.
So his name came up. I'm like, Alex Hyde White,
Professor Hyde White. Now, which villain was he? Was he the Creeper or was he Dr. Who was he?
No, the Creeper was the bank president.
Right. Was he Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? Was he? No, that was Jekyll, right? I don't know. But there is definitely a Professor Hyde White, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what episode. I think it's from the first season, but I don't remember what specific episode it was. It's just, that's the one that's always quoted.
Right, yeah, gotcha. So another thing, Wendy tests the antidote on herself, but how does she know it's going to work on somebody that's been exposed to the agent compound?
Here's the way it goes. Okay, Portland's been exposed with chemtrails. There you go, conspiracy nuts. So there were chemtrails in 1979.
There you go.
Now they have this cougar who is now grown to full size. They get the antidote. Miguel is Christopher Lee's being a really nice guy. He's here's a sample of the antidote, just so you know I'm on the level. And he leaves in the politician's hotel room, just as a little rib. It's like, yeah, I can get to you.
Mm-hmm.
So they have the antidote. They have this cougar which has been dosed with the stuff. And Dr. Day says, well, we need to test it. There's no time to do it here. I'll test it on myself on the way.
Mm-hmm.
Give the cougar at least some injection.
Right.
So you can do some testing while you're on the plane.
Right.
Just see if it works at all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it could have been liquid Tylenol for all we know. It's like, well, I don't have the sniffles anymore, but I mean, I just
yeah,
that part didn't. I mean, it's like they went out of their way to say, I'm going to test it on myself, like to show that, oh, she's sacrificing so much. Well, how do you know that? I mean, if they have it might not hurt you, but it might be like a binary compound, like the Joker venom in the Batman movie.
Yeah,
it's like,
really. Yeah.
If it's you use these two things together, then it gives you a rictus grin or something and kills you. I mean, it might have done something like that. So it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But
yeah.
And then another thing with this magic aging formula, Miguel orders his goons to spray it on the guard dogs in the prison. And it apparently agitates them. At what point did they ever say that this aging compound makes people or animals go ape crap when they get sprayed with it? I mean, Portland's not tearing itself apart. It's not like the stuff from Agent Carter.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like...
All I can think is that once they got dosed, then if they bit you, you would be infected like rabies, but they never explain that. That's
I hadn't
it's
thought
just,
of that.
that's just my mind trying to connect the dots. But speaking of those dogs, there are 3 dogs that attack him: a Doberman, a German Shepherd, and it looks like a Great Dane mix. I own 2 German Shepherds. I had one before that. I can tell you it's super obvious that those dogs are trained to attack only the shield, because at one point the German Shepherd gets behind him. He could have ripped his Achilles tendon out in no time if he really wanted to attack him. But no, it's like, oh wait, the shield's now over here. I have to get back in front of him. Try and be a little less obvious with the dog training next time.
Right, yes. So then when he gets to the prison, one thing that people seem to remember there's 2 things that people remember about this movie. One is the hang glider, which we'll get to, but 2 is the moment where Cap throws his bike up to the upper level of the prison. Like there's the prison wall. He throws it up and it just goes up and lands perfectly.
Well, it's got anti-grav discs in it, apparently.
It's made of Ninth metal.
It doesn't just land perfectly. It goes up and then slows down.
Right,
coming
right.
down.
It's
like, oh, there are the wires lowering it.
It goes up and arcs down. Yes.
Yeah.
And then he rides it off, and then he pushes the button that says deploy, and a hang glider pops out of it.
Yes. A hang glider, a full-size hang glider, comes out of what is approximately a 4-inch by 4-inch by 2-inch cube. At the back of the bike.
But it's awesome.
Yeah, all I can think of is that the Flash packed it.
There you go.
And the one thing I wrote down is I'm wondering if Captain America uses the same service as Batman.
Oh.
Because he just leaves the hang glider there. So does he have the van that comes up to pick the hang glider up, like with the parachutes?
The bat shoots, yeah. The automatic bat turn bat, yeah. Yeah. It's good one, yeah. The hang glider, I mean, it looks like what they did is they created a motorcycle facade. They had a guy on a hang glider in a Captain America suit and the motorcycle facade, basically between his legs. And it really does work. I mean, it looks effective.
Yeah, it does. I mean, there's no way it would work with a full motorcycle weight.
No.
It looks really well done. They did a nice job on it.
Right. And then the only bad part is he's chasing Christopher Lee in a station wagon. It's like Mike Brady trying to get away from Captain America.
But everybody had a station wagon in the 70s.
Well, this is true. But that's the one, this is like the one part that felt padded like the first movie. It's like, hey man, we spent a lot of money on these hang glider shots. We're going to use them. I want every shot, every frame of this hang glider sequence in this movie.
Well, you know that if they ended up with a series that they would have cut that up, just like the Bat boat or the Bat helicopter.
Yeah.
They would cut it up as like, okay, we need him to chase something in the hang glider. Bang, there it is.
Right.
Reuse, just like they reused the entire opening sequence from the first movie in this movie.
Right, yes, we're driving in the van, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right. They would have used it again and again and again. Miguel, when Cap confronts him, he has this line about, we could have been, if things were different, we could have been friends or something. It's like, what? I mean,
where did that come from?
It's like, that they really didn't, as good. Christopher Lee being effective in this movie has more to do with his screen persona than what they gave him to do.
Yeah.
They really don't give him a lot to do. He's not even, we're told Miguel is basically, he's been behind every bad thing that was done in the last, several decades. He's, they rattle off this list of things he did. I think he even came up with the Brady Bunch Variety Hour. I'm not sure, but he has that line, and there's supposed to be some kind of connection between them, but they don't give him he doesn't do anything particularly evil on screen. He doesn't kill a henchman for, screwing up or anything. He seems like a strict but fairly nice boss. It's like,
yeah, he just says, well, don't do this again, or actually he lets his underling mainly deal with other people.
Right.
But yeah, the idea of being taking over for the new warden, it's like, well, they don't know what he looks like, so most of the guards are actually guards, and they think he is the warden.
Right.
So, but no one at all, everybody in the world knows Captain America in his motorcycle.
Yeah.
Not one of the guards says, why the hell is Captain America breaking into a prison?
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like they don't stop and say, what's going on, Cap? Can we help you?
Yeah.
But, the part where he was in the prison was actually kind of a novel idea. I mean, it was a good place to hide out, but I'm not real sure why the prison has a laboratory unless they're doing some illegal testing on prisoners in this prison. It's a Hydra prison.
Yeah.
It's
Hail Hydra.
Yeah, Hail Hydra. You're failing! Sorry.
Yes, this movie was.
Yeah, but, poor Christopher Lee, he is doomed to be in movies where he crumbles to dust and ages. I'm sure all somebody had to do was pour some blood over top of him and Miguel would come back, but the way he ages is actually really well done because the minute he gets splashed, I don't know how they did it, but I don't know if it's Christopher Lee just contorting his face, but he looks like he wrinkles up the second he gets hit.
It could be. It could be like a, Frederick March doing Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Like a lighting thing, yeah.
Yeah, just like his face moving was enough to change it.
Right.
It was very effective, but it's funny because as soon as he gets splashed with the thing, my wife says, oh, now he's going to change into what he looks like now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And he kind of did at the very end with the white hair and everything.
Yeah, that looks, I don't know how they did that, but I don't know, I'm still I need to go back and look at it again because it looks like Christopher Lee just made up old, but he looks thinner. I don't know if they put him in baggier clothes they really put a lot of thought into making him look like they just didn't put, makeup on him to make him look old. I mean, he looks like he has lost about 20 pounds and he just looks very emaciated and it's really well done. I mean, it's kind of at an odd angle, so you don't get like a really good look at his face, but that part was actually, they could have went with a really bad, old man makeup on him and ruined the whole thing, but they really did it was really well done.
Yeah, it was really good. I have to say, and like you said, it's not necessarily the material was given, but every scene with Christopher Lee in this movie is very well done. Mm-hmm. And the makeup effect, the way he contacts the government, he calls them, but he has a rerouter to hide so they can't trace the call. Mm-hmm. And it's clever. They don't point it out. It's just, okay, well, they're hanging up the phone, then they're hanging up this other phone. Mm-hmm. And it took me until the second time they used it to realize what they were actually doing. So if they were a little more subtle like that with other aspects, it could have been really good.
Right. Yeah. It's, it's interesting because, trying to do, there's, like you said, there's not very much on these movies as far as plot synopsis or anything on the internet. And your plot synopses were really good, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah. Some places I saw, they kind of compared him to Miguel to a pseudo Red Skull type. I don't know if that's really apt. The Red Skull used the dust to death sometimes, but I think that's kind of pushing it. I think it's just because Christopher Lee is a supervillain worthy bad guy, and he's in this Captain America movie. I think that's pretty much the connection.